What does the Bible mean when it talks about dragons, Israel, and war in heaven? Hi, Alex McFarland here. You know, in Revelation 12 and 13, there is an account of a serpent, a fiery dragon that makes war on Israel, makes war on the church, ultimately tries to dominate earth and heaven. Well, we're going to talk with Dinesh D'Souza, filmmaker, and we're going to learn about this enigmatic passage about the dragon. Wow, it's always a privilege to introduce our longtime friend and colleague, Dinesh J. D'Souza. He's a multiple best-selling author, a documentary filmmaker, known around the world as an expert on international issues, and certainly dominating the news is news of the Middle East. Well, Dinesh, I want to welcome you to the program and thank you for being with us for all that you do, but to also talk about your exciting new film on the dragon's prophecy. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be with you as always.
Well, thank you. Before we go too far, give any website that people can learn more about this brand new film.
The film was in theaters for a couple of days, very successful kind of opening salvo. It's now in streaming and DVD, so easy to watch. And the website is The Dragons, plural, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Don't forget the film part, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. And that's where you can watch it. And it's on a number of platforms, but that's the easiest place to get it.
You know, we've had Jonathan Cahn, your colleague, on this show a number of times, and he's a multiple best-selling author as well. What was it about this particular book that caught your attention and motivated you to make the documentary?
I started out just becoming interested in biblical archaeology. This was unrelated to the film. My wife and I went to Israel for the first time in December of 2022. And I found it really interesting that you have all these figures in the Bible that for many, many centuries were only in the Bible. You could take them on faith, but if somebody asked you to prove the existence of, let's say, Pontius Pilate or the high priest Caiaphas or the prophets Isaiah or Jeremiah or even King David, you wouldn't be able to do it until now. In recent decades, out of the ground, not in Israel, but not just in Israel, have come coins and stone inscriptions and clay seals and artifacts of all kinds. And suddenly these figures are jumping out of the Bible and into the pages of history via the pathway of archaeology. So this intrigued me. And I'm like, why isn't this being like promulgated from the rooftops of every synagogue and church? And then October 7th comes around, and I begin to realize we're dealing with something profoundly evil here, something that in some ways exceeds even the Nazis in the sense that the Nazis concealed their worst atrocities. The death camps, for example, were not in Germany, but in occupied Poland. But here Hamas is like broadcasting their war crimes. And so I kind of became interested in doing something on this. And then along comes Jonathan Cahn, and he's an interesting prophetic figure in the sense that he doesn't conjecture about the future. He looks to the remote past, and he finds parallels in the war between Israel and Hamas. And he says, hey, look, this is chillingly similar to battles between the ancient Israelites and the Philistines, their longtime enemy, as depicted in the Bible. So I thought, wow, this is really a very fascinating comparison, which Jonathan Cahn, as you know, he pursues it with a rigor and a kind of particularity of detail that makes it even more ingenious. So I thought, look, the archaeology gives me the past, the war gives me the present, and now the peace plan, of course. And then the biblical prophetic element is the future. So if I can pull these together in a nice tapestry, it will make a really powerful film.
Sure. You know, prior to May of 1948 and the reestablishment of Israel, the nation of Israel, you know, Dinesh, if you look at, say, the French atheist Voltaire 200 years ago and others of the skeptics, one of their, if you will, trump cards in their attempt to discredit the Bible was, the book of Revelation talks about Israel, this and that. There is no Israel. And, 200 years ago, the nation of Israel, I remember reading one of the the infidels of the 18th century who said a largely uninhabited piece of sand in the Middle East, how could that be the focal point of the world, the fulcrum on which, the world turns? And yet here we are, and literally dominating each day's news is Israel, the Middle East, Jerusalem. Do you find it stunning how this ancient part of the world, it is the locus of everything geopolitical going on right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. The atheism of the 19th century, much of which, by the way, had its roots in the Enlightenment, a lot of it involved armchair pundits reading the Bible and making conjectures like, I don't see how this could have been written contemporaneous with the events it describes. Probably some guy wrote it 300 years later, right?
Yeah.
And for a long time, you'd be like, well, that's an interesting theory. But now these speculators are being exposed as frauds because, like I say, it's not just that the major figures in the Bible are being corroborated. The Bible will sometimes refer to very minor characters, the royal steward of King Hosea, in Jeremiah, two dudes who were rounded up by King Zedekiah to go kind of keep an eye on Jeremiah. These guys appear, they're like cameo appearances in the Bible. And yet, out of the ground come clay seals, and there's their name, right? Jehukal, son of Shelemiah, Gedaliah, son of Pashur. Wow. So no one who lived 300 years later would have heard of these guys. And so suddenly we have, and what I find is deliciously ironic is God isn't like replying to the atheists with thunderous proclamations from of revealed truth. He's whispering back through the stones, through the language of science and archaeology, a language that the skeptics themselves have got to pay attention to. So there's an element of this in the film. This is not, by the way, from Jonathan Cahn's book. Jonathan Cahn assumes that his audience already accepts the authority of the Bible, but
Sure.
my audience is mixed. I've got secular people that are going to be like, Dinesh, come on, how do we know we can trust the Bible? And I'm like, all right, let's jump in with me into the archaeological pit, and I'll go show you some things that will change your mind.
And you've got in the film The Dragon's Prophecy, and again, the website is thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. But you've got footage after October 7, 23 that virtually anyone who sees this film has not witnessed before. Is that true?
The government of Israel made, in my view, a misjudgment, which was to withhold that footage, not to release it publicly. They showed it to some select journalists, but actually many of those journalists were on the left. They were anti-Israel. They showed no real interest in getting to the truth. So I've been collecting this footage for 2 years. Some of it is extremely brutal, so I excluded that. But I thought, look, if you're a filmmaker, you got to put people on the scene of the crime. You can't do a film on the Pacific War in World War II without showing Pearl Harbor. That's how it started. That's what got the whole thing going. And so I think what's particularly fascinating about the footage that opens this film for the first 10 minutes is this. You're not seeing it from Israel's point of view. You're seeing it from the attacker's point of view. It's almost like you're on a motorbike, you've got a GoPro on your head, and you're riding into the kibbutzes with Hamas. Why? Because they took the footage. And some of it they live streamed, some of it they put on their websites. So I think it puts people in the right context. We have a graphic warning on it, but nevertheless, it's important for people to see because all the discussion that follows proceeds from an attempt to understand the sheer, not just horror, but also the profound evil behind that event.
You also include some of your conversations with people like Mike Huckabee, our ambassador to Israel. You had direct conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu. Can you tell us about some of those conversations?
What's ironic is that when I started this film, it was a lot less timely than it is now. It seems odd, right? Because normally you try to make a timely film and you hope that people are still interested in the issue. But all this critique of Israel, some of it coming, by the way, from the right, from people like Tucker Carlson, are the Jews of today truly descended from the Jews of the Bible? Well, I have Huckabee addressing this issue directly, and I even take it straight to Netanyahu. And Netanyahu, in a very interesting way, comments, for example, about Jesus. Now, I don't think he would have said this 10 years ago, But what he says in the film is he goes, basically, Jesus was one of ours. Jesus was a Jew, and he was Yeshua. His mom is Miriam. His dad is Yosef. These are
Wow.
people who ate Jewish food and celebrated Jewish holidays. And he goes, Jesus walked the pilgrimage road with the other Jews going to the temple. So I think it's interesting here that Israel is, in a very explicit way, claiming Jesus. Now, not theologically, but they're claiming him
Sure.
historically and they're claiming him culturally. I think they've recognized the importance of the Christians as supporters of the cause.
What exactly is the call to action of the Dragon's Prophecy film, Dinesh?
The call to action is ultimately just to recognize that there is a world behind the world, and that there is a cosmic battle that is raging between God and the devil. Now, the dragon in the dragon's prophecy, this is right out of Revelation 12, the dragon is the devil, it's Satan. So
Yes.
it is to get people to recognize that this is not simply about like what's happening in Israel, like way over there. Because there are some people who say to me, well, Dinesh, we need to be America first. You know what? We're not concerned about it. And I'm like, listen, this film is about a battle for the human soul. Guess whose soul? Yours. And so
Yeah.
we have to decide which side we're on. We don't have a choice about whether to take sides. We only have a choice about which side to take. Are we on the side of good or evil? Are we going to go with God? Are we going to go with the dragon? So this choice is put very explicitly before people. So in that sense, this is my most, I would say, biblical or even spiritual film. It integrates politics and the Bible in a way that I have not done, at least not in this way before.
And when did you begin this film?
Well, I began to think about it after October 7th, and then we filmed it this year. I mean, we filmed it like 8 weeks ago. We were 9 days in Israel. Now, we did some filming in Dallas. We did some filming also in New York and New Jersey, but the majority of the film is shot all over Israel. I mean, I went down to the Gaza border. I'm interviewing a woman whose husband hopefully will be released with the hostages. Her name is Lishai Miran, so her husband is Omri. They have small children, and we're standing outside in their front yard of their little kibbutz, and you can hear bombs going off in the film, machine gun fire. And the other thing that's remarkable is as I was talking to her and she's describing what happened, she talks about how these Hamas guys come through her window, how they run into this, the family runs into the safe room, and so to make them open the door, they go grab the neighbor's teenage boy and put a gun to his head and say, either you open the door or we're going to kill this kid. And I realize as I'm talking to her, I actually have the footage of all that. In other words, I don't have to recreate it. I have the actual footage of what happened when Hamas went through her window. And so the film is kind of remarkable in that she's describing it and I'm showing you the live footage.
Certainly, you must have really felt a sense of God's providence over your filmmaking.
We felt very much led throughout this film. In fact, even when I'm walking the Gaza border, it's a football field basically between the kibbutzes and Gaza. And if you're
Yeah.
walking on that field, anybody from Gaza can take you out with a single shot. But nevertheless, I felt a complete peace about it. So did my film team. A lot of little things happened to us that kind of were little promptings to us. Guys, you're on the right path. You have a hedge of protection. Like, keep going. And so we definitely feel that this film is God led in that sense.
What can people do to support, to promote, to raise awareness?
Well, I think we've tried to create a message that is incredibly timely, but also timeless. And you can help us to share it. I mean, I just want people to see the film. We made this film really as part of a mission. It was financed by Salem Media. So if I can get Salem Media their coins back, I'll be very happy. But we're not trying really, all we're trying to do with this film is to amplify this message. The message in the end, I think, is very hopeful. The film does take you to some dark places, like, I mentioned October 7th. It also tries to expose the handbook of the dragon. But nevertheless, it doesn't leave you there. It leaves you on a note of invigoration, on a note of restoration. Actually, Debbie, my wife, and I get baptized in the River Jordan. We have a great song to close out the film by the singer John Rich. It's called Earth to God. So it's a very powerful revival type of closing of the film. It's going to empower you, and it's going to ultimately leave you, I think, spiritually rejuvenated.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for all the work you've done, and my goodness, this is exciting. The film's website is thedragonsprophecyfilm.com, right?
That's it.
How about your own of just your other work outside of this?
You can follow me on X at Dinesh D'Souza. I do a daily podcast called the Dinesh D'Souza Podcast. It's an audio in Apple and Spotify. It's in video on YouTube and Rumble. But definitely check out the movie website, which is thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Well, we've got to take a break. Thank you, Dinesh D'Souza. Folks, stay tuned. More after this brief intermission. 100 Bible questions and answers on prophecy and the end times. You can get it at booksellers everywhere. Our brand new book, Bert Harper, Alex McFarland, Exploring the Word, 100 Bible questions and answers on prophecy and the end times, published by our great friends at Broad Street Publishing. Check it out, and we believe it will help you understand how to live and thrive in these last days. Wow, so much to think about. War, spiritual battles. The Bible has so much to say about the reality of spiritual entities and how spiritual warfare plays into the end times. As we reflect on this conversation with Dinesh D'Souza, and I do urge you to see the movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, let me encourage you, if you're a Christian, if you're part of a church, to speak on Bible prophecy. Do you remember in Matthew 28:18-20, where Christ was giving the Great Commission, and in addition to making disciples, he told the Christians, and that includes us today, teach the world all things whatsoever I have told you. And in Luke 24:36-37, after having risen from the dead, Jesus said that remission of sin, repentance, salvation should be preached to all nations, and also things whatsoever he has taught us. So Bible prophecy, I really feel like that is one of the great neglected topics of the church, but it's time we talk about, because in Revelation 12 and 13, it talks about this great red dragon. Now the word also means serpent, and it says that the dragon made war on the woman that delivered the man-child. And of course, Revelation 12 talks about Michael, the archangel, and Lucifer, and it says there was war in heaven, and Michael fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. Now, the church overcomes by the blood of the Lamb. What is this talking about? Who is the dragon and what are his angels? Well, the dragon is Lucifer, who fell, and Lucifer became Satan. His angels are the demons that joined Lucifer in a failed coup attempt of heaven. Lucifer conned 1/3 of the angels into joining him in an attempted overthrow. Lucifer and those angels were cast out, became Satan and the demons. And why would the dragon want to make war on Israel, the woman? Well, here's the thing. In Romans 3, verse 2, Paul says, unto the Jews were committed or entrusted the oracles of God. The word is logai, from which we get the word logos, or words. The words of God, the scriptures, were given to the Jewish people. And also, as Revelation 12, 5 and 6 says, through Israel was born the man-child. Now, who is the man-child? And folks, you cannot understand world history. You cannot even understand current events unless you grasp that world history is the story of spiritual battle. In Genesis 3:15, the proto-evangelium, that means first gospel, God promised that the one-day man-child that would be born would crush the head of the serpent. Now, the man that is the seed of the woman, now, ordinarily in the patriarchal ancient world, a child, an offspring, would be the seed of the man. But Jesus is the seed of the woman, because that's a reference to the virgin birth. I think about how Isaiah 7:14 says, a virgin will conceive and bear a child. Mary was a virgin. Christ had no sin nature. So the man-child that was born of a woman to deliver those that were under the law, Galatians 4:4, it's Jesus. Prophesied all the way back in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis 3:15, and Isaiah 7:14, born of a virgin, Galatians 4:4, at just the right time, and Israel, the called out nation through whom God sent the Messiah. Why is the dragon of Revelation 12 and 13 making war on Israel? And we see that today. Well, it's because Satan knows that his doom is a certainty. And as we get closer and closer to the last days, the end times, and I write about everything you're hearing and so much more in our brand new book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy and the End Times. Look, the devil is going to frantically cause more and more trouble on planet Earth because he knows his time is drawing near. His destination is the lake of fire. Satan is a defeated foe, and his days are just about over. You know, Dinesh, in our conversation just now, maybe you heard about the level of wickedness, how in the aftermath of the October 7, 2023 attacks and just bloodshed, and so many of the Hamas terrorists were just boasting about it. I'm reminded of a book that came out in the 1970s. Some of you that are of a certain age, you might remember this book called 666 by Salem Kirban, Kirban, and it was one of the first prophecy books, and it was kind of a little bit of a fictionalized telling of the 7-year tribulation on earth. But it was very biblically accurate, very faithful to the text, but in story form, Salem Kirban tried to tell the story of life on earth in the aftermath of the rapture. And there was the Antichrist executing Jews and Christians. And I remember, even though this was before I was even really a Christian myself, but I remember people being very dismissive, and they said, you know, oh, the bloodshed and the decapitations and just the wanton, gleeful killing of non-followers of the Antichrist. That's probably not going to be that bad, is it? And yet, you know, I think about during the last years of Obama's time in office, when on a French beach, streamed live, Hamas and jihadist terrorists decapitated journalists and a couple of Americans. And you ask, what ideology, what worldview celebrates bloodshed and innocent lives being taken? Well, it is that Islamic worldview, that they feel like that in killing the infidels, that's Christians and Jews, they are serving Allah. And so absolutely, we're living in a time where the rise of the militant Islamic worldview, and I truly believe a secular world that will come in lockstep obedience to forcibly try to have this global police state. Islam might be the spiritual ideology, but secularism, Marxism will be the political, socioeconomic, secular ideology. And as pragmatic bedfellows, the spiritual, Islamic, the social, governmental, Marxist worldview, they will conspire together to dominate the world. Now, where does this leave you and me? Number one, if you've never accepted Christ, by all means, today, give your life to Christ, get your spiritual house in order. Then I would encourage you, believe what the Bible says about the future. Read good books like the books by Jonathan Cahn. Learn from documentaries like Dinesh's movie, The Dragon's Prophecy. Read our books, The Attack on America, How to Defend Our Nation Before It's Too Late, and my newest book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy. Read, study, be prepared. Hi, Alex McFarland here, and I want to invite you to be a part of something very powerful, United in Prayer. Through United in Prayer, people are coming together to pray for our families, our churches, and our nation. Each week we send you prayer points and suggestions about how to pray with power. So please go to my website, alexmcfarland.com, and join us, and together we'll be united in prayer. Hi, Alex McFarland here. So excited about what God is doing in this ministry, and I want to share a little of that with you because I think what is happening in our ministries represents an exciting time for all who care about God and country. We believe people need a relationship with Jesus Christ. We also believe that masses and masses of young people need to really learn the truth about America and to feel patriotism and not to feel like a Marxist socialist future would be good for us, but our Judeo-Christian constitutional republic. That's what we talk about, and that's what we teach, and that's the fire we desire to ignite in all of our events, publishing, and broadcasting. And I want to say a word to everyone out there of thanks for those that partner with us and pray for us. But what about you? Would you be willing to support something that is bringing thousands of people to Christ, and I think is really helping save our nation? So let me say, with our brand new book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy and the End Times, if you would make a financial gift of at least $40, a donation of at least $40, I'm going to send you this brand new book, just came out in the fall of 25, fresh research on AI. What about things like cryptocurrency and the calls for a cashless society? Things going on in the Middle East, the peace plan. Does it have prophetic implications? The brand new book published by Broad Street, I will send to you if you would give a gift of at least $40 or more. And you may donate online securely at alexmcfarland.com or mail a check, simply AMM, Alex McFarland Ministries, P.O. Box 485, Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, 27313. That's Alex McFarland Ministries, P.O. Box 485, Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, 27313. Please, your most generous gift, and it will be faithfully used. And you know, I think about our speaker series that we did with Dinesh D'Souza and so many other great speakers, and of course, the late Charlie Kirk, who 2.5 weeks after he was with us, he went to heaven. More than ever, this is time for us to stay bold, stand strong, speak truth, and this ministry is here to help you do that.